Although we have been super lucky to have 2 healthy little girls, we have been asked a lot to open up more about our infertility struggle, and although we've never kept it a secret, we realized we've never actually done a whole video dedicated to it, so we're actually gonna probably do 2 videos because it's gonna be long. We're gonna take you through our entire infertility journey, the struggles, what the diagnosis was, and how we overcame it. And then in the next video, we'll talk more about, you know, overview of what worked, what didn't, and the tips and advice we would give to those struggling with infertility, because we do have a lot. We've had a lot of people reach out to us over the years and have been so happy to use our mess as our message. So without further ado, here's my husband, San, joining us. So we don't normally do videos like this, so if you just found our channel, know that this is kind of special type of video. We are very open and transparent, but we do more videos geared toward working parents and busy moms and balancing work and life and everything in between. So if you like that kind of content, make sure you check out our other videos, and we'd be happy if you subscribed and love to have you as part of our glue stick community. But anyway, we're gonna jump in so we don't waste too much time. We are sharing our story for 3 reasons.
So why are we sharing? One is to give people hope. I know a lot of people are struggling through this, and you know, we just want you guys to know that we are here for you and support you 100%.
And you know, we want to share that there are people who get through it without crazy treatments. That's not everybody's story, but we want to give hope to those who are struggling right now.
And second and third is to educate and hopefully give you guys some good resources and, you know, I guess tips, I guess you could say.
Yeah, we want to educate those who don't really know a lot about infertility and want to know what it's actually like, so we thought we'd share a story for that. Okay, so first question, how long did we try for? So I don't know exactly, but I know we were trying for about 9 months.
Less than a year.
Or a little longer. I don't know when we officially started, but we had been trying for many months, weren't successful, so we decided to go in. We just went into like a regular OB doctor, and he recommended we just put me on the pill for a cycle and see if that like jump starts and gets things moving. But we tried for a few months after that and still nothing. So after talking with a friend who had gone through infertility treatments in the past, she recommended her doctor and clinic, and they have like a whole infertility section there, and so they're very knowledgeable. They specialize in this, and so we just thought we'd go straight there, see what they said, do the workup, and see what our chances are, hoping we would just find nothing and just keep trying, or maybe do artificial insemination. But let's talk about what they actually test for in case you aren't aware. So for men,
they do a sperm analysis. We had to type up a lot of stuff because there was just so many
much
details
going on,
so for me and Sarah, she had both do a physical exam, so I had to do a sperm analysis where they check the volume, you know, like how much of fluid there is, the concentration of just, I think, how many parts per million, I think, in a teaspoon or something like that. The motility, which is how many are moving and which direction, and the morphology, which is like the shape of the head or the tail. We're still not quite sure.
Yeah, just the 100%. Shape in general. So for me as a woman, they did an internal and external ultrasound just to kind of see, you know, what everything looks like. They also did a lot of blood tests. So on certain days of my cycle, they would test for certain hormones to make sure I had enough so that, you know, an egg was ovulating and all that kind of stuff. And then they did this thing called an HSG, a hysterosalpingogram, if you wanted the full name. And that's basically where you're in like an x-ray room, I don't know, radiology department, and they stick a catheter into your cervix, a balloon to open up your uterus, and then they shoot like medical grade dye into your uterus and out of your fallopian tubes, and they're doing an x-ray at the same time so they can see the dye, so they can see the shape, they can see if there's any blockages, see if like your fallopian tubes are, you know, broken or something like that. And I did have like a tiny bit of blockage on one side, so as she was injecting it, like it was very full of pressure, and you have a lot of cramping during this, but it looked good. So that was definitely the worst part of all my testing and dealing with the aftermath of this dye, but other than that, it was pretty painless, easy. And so what we found was that on my end, everything looked normal. There is still unexplained infertility where they just don't know what's wrong,
idea.
but on my end, everything came back normal.
And then for me, the volume was fine, the concentration was just fine. The motility was like they're swimming in the wrong direction.
Yeah, we don't really know what that meant.
And morphology, which is kind of the big one, we think, is the shape. They were completely misshapen. Not sure it was the head or the tail of the sperm, but we were at 0%, which means like there's absolutely no way that little guy can
do
what it needs to
do. Yeah, and what's frustrating for us when we got that diagnosis is I wanted to know, as somebody who likes to solve problems, I wanted to know, is it the tail that's misshapen? Can they just not swim? Is it the enzyme on the head that penetrates the egg that isn't there or is misshapen? So we would obviously have a hard time actually getting pregnant even if they put the sperm in the right spot. Or do they have two heads or two tails? Like, we wanted to know because that would definitely affect what avenues we would try. We may not even try insemination if, you know, they don't even have the enzyme or whatever, but there was no way to get those answers, which is frustrating, and I don't know if things have changed or other places do it differently, but that was just our experience. So what was our reaction to these results?
Kind of shocked, because we thought we were like the average couple who it just took time to get pregnant, but you know, it was hard. It crushed us, absolutely crushed us. Like, you know, you feel like, if you think you feel like less of a man when you do certain things, like this is probably the time where you're like, wow, I can't even make kids,
right?
You know, or able to have kids, pregnant someone.
Yeah, for me it just felt like this dream I've had my entire life was just crushed. And even if we did get pregnant eventually, it just crushed me that I knew what this is like, that we couldn't get pregnant easily. Like, we weren't one of those people who just went on our honeymoon and like, bam, pregnant, like no struggle. Like, that just crushed me. And we spent quite a few months of just wallowing in that, processing, which I think is healthy and normal. But it's just so frustrating not being on the other side, knowing, and you have so many people that are just like, oh, just stop stressing about it and it will happen. And we're like, we tried that for over a year and it didn't work.
Just one. I'm like, well, my ones don't.
We have zero to work with. So, yeah. So after that, you know, what they recommended is for Sam to go see a urologist because, you know, they did everything they could on my end as far as testing, but we wanted to see if maybe there was something causing the morphology issue.
So I went to the doctor, you know, he got up all in my business, literally, made sure there wasn't any lumps, any weird, like, you know, turn your head and cough thing.
Sometimes there's a vein that can like cause problems.
You know, so maybe like there was like a blockage. Who knows? But those tests came back just fine too.
Yeah, and he did blood tests too for his hormones, and those were all normal as well.
Yeah. So
basically, what the doctors that we talked to recommended would be, you know, our best bet would be IVF with ICSI. Do you want to explain what that is?
So IVF, if it's pretty, people know what that is. It's in vitro fertilization, and I'm not sure what ICSI stands for, but I think it's when they take obviously the egg from the mother and the sperm from the father and they put them together. Yeah,
they actually penetrate the egg artificially and then inject the sperm, whereas normal IVF, they just put them in a dish and let them do it on their own. With ICSI, you know, you do that if the sperm like possibly can't penetrate the egg, so you don't want to just spend all this money getting all these eggs and then nothing. So that was our best bet, which is like the most expensive way to have a biological child besides like surrogacy and stuff like that. So that was really frustrating. Our doctor said we could try, you know, some natural things on our own and try insemination, where basically they just take the sperm and they put it up into the woman, and so that they're closer by each other, and so if we were having problems with the sperm swimming, they would be where they need to be, and it's a lot cheaper to do that, so we could do a few rounds of that. But we didn't really need like me to be on any hormones or stuff like that, because as far as we knew, everything on my end looked normal. So after this, basically what we did was just try to get as much information as possible and kind of settle with the information before we decided what to do. And one part of that was going to an IVF meeting, And that for me was like probably one of the lowest days of my entire life.
Yeah.
You walk into this building, there are all these couples who, you know are really struggling to get pregnant. Everybody looks sad, no one's talking, no one's smiling at each other, you're just kind of looking down and you feel this shame even though you didn't do anything wrong. And they went over everything, and what was super duper hard for me, and something that's hard for people to grasp who haven't gone through this, it's the whole idea that your child has a price tag was really, really hard, and that there are decisions to be made about how much money and what deal are you going to do, because at the clinic we were at, there was the single IVF procedure, which was a certain amount of money, or you can do 3 for a discounted price. So let's say, IVF on its own was $10,000. Or you could get 3 for $25,000 or something instead of 30. And so I think it was even more expensive than that. But what was really frustrating for me was there's all these people suffering, and now you have to sit here and go, well, how many times do we think it's going to take to get a baby? Yeah. And if you get a baby, you don't get to try those other 2 times for future children.
Right.
It was for one baby.
I think you could have froze them, but that was an additional like $10K.
But if, let's say you paid the $25,000 for 3 rounds, if you had a baby on the first round, you're just out those other $15,000. You can't put them toward anything. And I just felt so crushed and angry at this, and I was just so angry, and like, why do we even have to decide this, and why are people coming up with deal prices for people who are just trying to have babies, and why doesn't insurance help with any of this? Like, I was just feeling so low and sad and crushed, and that was really my low point. But we turned that anger eventually into this hunger for just trying whatever we could. So I started researching, he started researching. So we really started to look at online, and based on what the urologist had told us and hearing from other people, because I had been connecting with a lot of people in infertility forums, trying to connect with people with a similar diagnosis to get answers, because as great as doctors are, there's nothing like, hearing real stories from other people and, finding those people and taking what they have to tell you and making it your own. So we came up with this giant list of vitamins that Stan could take. It looks like it was 10 in the morning, 5 in the evening, and then we also had gone to an acupuncturist individually,
and
had the acupuncture.
I think 6 or 7 tiny little like herbal medicine things.
So he was taking those on top of all of this because it was supposed to help with fertility, because we were just desperate for whatever we could do on our own. We didn't want to have to do these invasive procedures if we didn't have to. And honestly, we just, we wanted Sam to be healthy, and obviously something wasn't healthy with him if if he had the 0% morphology. So we also cut out like all chemicals in our house, shampoos, conditioners, anything we could. We tried to get rid of anything with parabens, sulfates,
we switched
all
to
of that
better
stuff.
Alternatives.
And then I also started going to therapy, which was a specific therapist that dealt with infertility, which was really, really helpful. And I just looked into books. I was reading books and just seeing what they recommended, and we decided, let's try for 3 months, just going gung-ho crazy, like cutting out everything we can cut out, trying as, doing the basal body temperature, ovulation tests, like the whole 9 yards for 3 months. And if it doesn't work, then we were probably going to try insemination in addition to all this stuff, because we just wanted it to work. And so we cut out coffee. We had planned to cut out coffee, alcohol, like gluten, dairy, like all of this stuff, just crazy.
We were going to go like full on.
Like, that was the plan. And then I also read this book that I would highly recommend to anybody suffering from infertility, and I will link it below. It's called Making Babies. It's a 3-month program, which I think is where I got this idea, and it basically looks into your body type and your blood type and your cycle type, and for the man, all this stuff, and it gives you specific recommendations based on what type you are. And so I like photocopied this and like had it in binders, highlighted, and had this whole plan. And that also involved like visualization and affirmations and stuff like that I'm now very into, but back then I wasn't. And so it has you like visualize certain things on certain days of your cycle. It has you do these like self massages, and I was just desperate, so I was like, whatever I gotta do, I'll do it, because I want to get pregnant. Because another part of this is when you're married and you are making love with your partner and desperately wanting to get pregnant, it takes the fun out, and it's really sad, and then it's just this chore, and it's not supposed to be, but it is, and it's, you know, this thing that was supposed to be this thing that brings you together is just, there's like this dark part to it, and we didn't want that, but we wanted a baby, and so we're like, whatever we gotta do, let's just get through this. And then I also met with somebody who had been through adoption to see what her story was and how it worked and how much money it cost for her, and I was just trying to get as much information. I was now no longer like sulking in the sadness, and I was proactive. I was like, okay, I'm done wallowing, what can I do? I'm sure on the stages of grief, like that's somewhere in there, like maybe denial, I don't know, but we were just like, let's do what we can and try to make this work. Right around that time, I vividly remember taking our 2 dogs at the time for a walk, and a woman smiled at me, and it was close to summertime, and I just had this peace, like there's some reason why we're going through this. It's for a reason, and we had recently shared openly on a blog we had at the time and our Facebook pages. We had shared with everybody what was going on. It was during like National Infertility Week or whatever in April, and so many people shared that they had struggled with it. So many people shared that they were praying for us, and I felt it. I felt like, okay, people know, it's not a secret, we're gonna get through this one way or another, and our story will be important, and our story can help somebody. And that made me feel like, okay, there's a purpose in this. And literally a few days later,
found out we were pregnant.
Yeah. So we hadn't fully officially started, or maybe we were like a week into starting, but we had already been pregnant when we started this. But you know, it takes a few weeks to find out you're pregnant. And we were just shocked. I mean, the first time we tested, I remember, that's the only test I remember actually taking besides Bryony's. We laid in bed, we waited for the timer to go off.
Oh yeah.
We checked it, you know, we were praying, we were just wishing like, please, please let it be pregnant. And there was, it looked negative, but there was the faintest second line.
As faint as it can get.
As faint as it can get. We took pictures, like changed the settings to just see. We were like posting in forums, texting people like, does this look like a line to you? And so we're like, okay, we'll wait a day, because you know the first pee is the best pee. We didn't want to get ourselves worked up that it's negative, if it wasn't, or whatever. So we waited a day, and then the next day it was like twice as dark. Not a dark line, but it was the second line, and we just knew. And we were,
I mean, she peed again.
Every day for like 10 days I peed. I still have them somewhere, and I'll never let them go, because I mean, it was a dream come true. Like, still, like, it hits me. It was just amazing, you know.
So for Sarah, like you talked about being at peace with it, I guess there was one moment where I just kind of had like, I just broke down and I cried.
Before we found out.
Really, really hard. Like, I can't, you know, I don't know what to do for you. You know, I said like, and I thought like, is she gonna leave me? Because that's like her biggest dream was like to have children, and I couldn't provide that, you know, and that was a really hard time for me too. And I guess I remember her saying like, I would rather not have children with you than have 10 with somebody else. So you know, I'm like. That made me feel a lot better.
But it's still, you felt like you were letting me down, and it killed me that you felt that way.
But, you know, the moment that we found out, it was hard to believe, extremely hard to believe. It's still hard for me to believe, because, you know, I look at Celia every day, and I'm like, I can't believe you're here. You're not supposed to be here. You shouldn't be here.
Like, not like, if you've been through infertility, you understand, like you weren't
why
supposed
are you here
to be
kind of thing, where like, you are scientifically not supposed to be here. You know.
And we've told her story since she could talk, you know, not with all the numbers and talked about sex and stuff, but we just said, the doctor said we couldn't have babies, but God gave us you. And so she knows that, and just, her name means heaven's grace. It's like the perfect name for her, and it just, even on our hardest days, we come back to that. Like, we are so lucky. Doesn't make it easier to parent. It doesn't take away the hard parts, but when you've been through that, you just appreciate it so much more. Or if you've seen somebody firsthand go through it, you know, you appreciate that gift so much more, because you realize what a gift it actually is. And we are just so blessed. And honestly, I look back and I'm so grateful we went through that. Like, I can say that now. I know there's so many people who are like, well, I don't have the baby, I'm not grateful. But for us, I am, because I had a really good taste of what it's like, wondering, will it ever happen? You know, what are we going to do if we can't or can't afford to have them? What are we going to do? And to come to terms with that and just know how people are suffering, because it makes me word things differently. It makes me appreciate my children in a different way. And it makes even the hard times put into perspective.
And it also makes you like look at asking newly married couples, or just couples in general, like, when are you guys gonna have kids?
Yeah, we don't ask
like,
that.
We don't ask that anymore.
Unless we really know them and they know our story.
You know, and I think that's and the timing of this video, guys, is like coming around April Fool's Day, and it's not funny to joke about.
Yeah, I had a friend who, at the time, pretended to be pregnant, like posted a picture, went along with it. And she didn't know we were struggling, but that's when I chose to educate her. And I wasn't mean, but I was just like, I just want to let you know this can be really, really hurtful, because that was the first time ever since we got the diagnosis that somebody I was close to revealed that they were pregnant, and it actually wasn't true. But I had gone through all those emotions of like, wow, this is going to happen a lot. I'm going to have to watch all my friends get pregnant before me.
And there was a lot of
and all this stuff, all this stuff. But then I found out she wasn't even telling the truth, and it was just so hurtful. And I know she didn't mean it to be that way, but I just think of all things you could joke about on April Fools, I don't think that's a good one now, being on that other side. But whatever. But anyway, I think we're gonna wrap up this video. In the next video next week, we will talk about, you know, how we got pregnant with the second, you know, what it looks like moving forward for us, and the tips we would give to those across the board struggling with infertility. So we hope this video has helped you in some way, whether it's giving you hope, making you feel like you're not alone, or giving you some answers and some resources and things to try. We just want to be a light for other people and use our struggles to help others. So thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.